Ikwe Kalio. I greet you all in the Yoruba language. My name is Baba Luqman, and along with Ray Wilkerson, we welcome you to another episode of the Waters of Healing. Let us first begin by thanking the Creator for giving us the gift of life, intelligence, and awareness. We seek the Creator's guidance and help. We acknowledge our humanness and that we are creatures that rely upon earth, and that we must develop a healthy relationship with everyone and everything around us. A developed person is one who isn't in conflict with his surroundings. So we'd like to welcome you here tonight. And let me just introduce my co-host, Ray Wilkerson. Hey, Ray, what's going on?
How you doing? But before we get started, listen, I need everybody to hit that like button. I need you to hit that like button. I need you to hit that subscription. Also, I need you guys, to make sure you hit that notification, because this will notify you when we might do a pop-up, but we're here every Friday, every Saturday at 7 o'clock. But look, I am excited about our topic today, but make sure y'all do those three things and let's get this thing going.
That's right. That's right. And just like, look, I know a lot of you, we have gotten a lot of good feedback from our show last week, Ray. I mean, a lot of good feedback, and a lot of the men who have tuned in have really appreciated, what we tried to do. And we know that there are also some women who was on our broadcast. And even though this is geared to the men, many of you have men in your lives. So if you we're just asking that invite your significant other, your brothers, your nephews, your cousins. Tell them to come to the Waters of Healing, where it is a safe space for men to heal. And so we thank you for joining us. So today we will speak on hypermasculinity. And we will ask, what is hypermasculinity? And why is it an issue in the Black community? Let's look at what is sometimes called toxic masculinity. So, Ray, what is the history of hypermasculinity in the Black community?
So let's just give you a real quick understanding. And it's also called the macho personality. The macho personality. That's what it's also called. So hyper masculinity is described as a psychological term for aggression of male stereotypical behavior, such as emphasis on physical strength, aggression, and sexuality. I want you guys to pay very, very close attention to the description and to some of the things how I describe it. I will always tell people, always know where we get a definition, find out where that definition comes from, and what is it really trying to get us to hear. Hypermasculinity has been criticized globally by numerous social activist movements as contributing to the rape culture. If you keep that in mind, what it's saying. It contributes to low self-esteem and violence against women and the gay community and the murders of trans women. Mm-hmm. We see that hypermasculinity every day in the media, advertisements, TV commercials, and notably widely criticized Summer's Eve commercials, manly mistakes. Hypermasculinity has become such an issue to society that men in 2016 are held to outrageous standards in order to reclaim masculinity. I got to say it again. Hypermasculinity has become such an issue to society that men in 2016 are held to outrageous standards. Keep that in mind, outrageous standards in order to reclaim masculinity. Because men these days feel, because of the growing public acceptance of gay men and or just embracing femininity, that there's an attack on masculinity and that they have to defend, or we have to defend, or whoever has to defend. But how does all this affect Black men specifically? When you think about hyper masculinity as relating to Black men, it dates all the way back to slavery. Black males were hypermasculine by slave owners to be seen as brick walls, good for hard work, and heavy hitters. Say it again. So this is the underlining. This is the foundation that it's coming from. All right, it's coming from a place of slave masters when they would come to auctions. They didn't want that. They didn't want that black male to seem weak. They didn't. They didn't want him to seem fragile, because they were selling the appeal that he wasn't soft, that he was hard, he was a hard worker, and because if he saw anything soft about this man, the sale would be weak. He couldn't get the price he wanted. He had to lower the prices. So when we talk about hypermasculinity, as far pertaining to black men, a strong black man with no emotions, who's ready to obey the orders of their master at any minute, was a slave owner's dream.
Wow. I mean, that's deep, Ray. I mean, that's really deep, man.
Look, you go ahead and expound on that, because I got to say it again, because I felt something hit the atmosphere when we said that.
Yes, sir. And I just wanted to say, you know, I know Ray said 2016, but you know it's 2021. So let's not nitpick here. So we know it's 2021. So, but the problems are still here today. But this is the thing, Ray. When you was talking about, and I'm glad that you brought up the history of this hypermasculinity, because one of the things that we have to understand about being a colonized people, why that a lot of our dysfunction is rooted in our slave, the way in slavery is rooted in slavery, is rooted in the way that our natural nature has been distorted based upon the enslavement of our ancestors. Now, one of the things that I had always, one of the things that I when I first looked at this topic, I said, was there hypermasculinity, in Africa before the transatlantic slave trade, like before our ancestors came here? Was there a such thing as hypermasculinity? I would venture to say no. And the reason why I would say no is because hypermasculinity seems to be a response. And as what you just said, it seems to be a response to something that is abnormal. A response of having to make up or to create some type of masculine an interpretation of what masculinity is. Why when we were back in Africa, we had what we call rites of passage. There was a way of an organized way of our community, tribal if you want to call it, nation, whatever you want to call it, but there was an organized structure that educated young men into what their responsibilities are to themselves and to the tribe and to the outer nation. Would you agree with that?
I definitely agree with that. And when you really think about this, and I always say this, right? When you look at the narrative, when you look at slavery, when you look at the perception of a black man, what is that perception? That perception of yes, I'm boss, or yes, I'm boss. Okay, or it said he liked, he admired, he dreamed of a black man who would jump at his every whim, Uncle Tom. I mean, every whim. You see, he admired. Think about it. Think about in today's society, and then think about today's society. Who is the ideal worker for the other ethnicity?
Well, I mean,
now,
right now they would say the Mexican or the Latino.
Okay, they would say the Mexicans, and why aren't they saying the black man no more?
What do you think?
One of the reasons that I think, because they no longer are. When you gave me an article, and I'm gonna share this with you. So this young guy, Waka Flocka, whatever his name was, he challenged a particular perception of a black man.
Okay.
And when he challenged that, the gentleman who wrote the article, he wrote an article about him. So when I did research on the gentleman that wrote the article, I seen his motives was because he wanted that lifestyle to be free.
Right.
So because we're getting some black men who are awakening, whose eyes are being opened, and who has an understanding is that we are truly a king. We are truly powerful. God really has anointed us to do certain things. And so now we become a threat because guess what? Why did they not let us be around their women?
Mm-hmm.
because they felt we were more powerful, more stronger. They felt we were more sexually built, right? So they made a narrative of the black man is an animal and all this stuff. But now they can't tame us. Now they can't control us.
But I mean, but if you look at that too, Ray, I mean, if they want to, they and you're right, try to reduce us down to an animal level. But the thing of it is that, I mean, there were black men who they were using on breeding farms, breeding us like we're animals.
Oh yeah, no question. See, it still comes back to this, and I just got to be. I'm like really totally transparent. I always look at, even with the definition, even with the history that we just read and that we just went over, I got to go beyond what the narrative is, because even with that, I promise you, see, there was more than one Nat Turner. But they want to make it all seem like all of us was carrying down. All of us was being submissive. Let me give you a case in point. The nonviolent. Remember Martin Luther King?
Sure.
And everybody said there was nonviolent and all that stuff.
Right.
But nobody told you the real story. Nobody told you about the deacons of the defense who was at every protest with pistols, hanging out there, telling the white folks, if you do something, right, we got you. They didn't tell all this. Hold on, they didn't tell all the stories. They caught one clips. If you next time look at one clips, you see a brother sneaking a police off. That back then they was beating the mess out of them white boys. You see, so when we talk about this narrative of hypermasculinity, no, it don't have nothing to do with us trying to rape people. They'll, they talk about three variables that deal with sexual, it's against women, it's against gays and all that stuff. That don't pertain to who we are. That don't pertain to what we really are. So when they start giving us these definitions, and when people start challenging other men because they want to be free, and we know who the people are saying they need to be free, and we need to be ourselves, and we need to share our feelings. Listen, ain't nothing wrong with sharing your feelings, ain't nothing wrong with being yourself. But look, a man's a man, period.
No, I mean, I agree, and I also think that when the point that you brought up about how they define hypermasculinity as being, like you said, abusive to women, basically being abusive to those who they consider weaker than themselves. And I totally agree with you, Ray. That is not masculinity. And I think that's what we're trying to stress here. Yeah, that's not masculinity, because first of all, a man, and if you look at every indigenous culture on the face of this planet, men have been groomed to be first protectors. There is no society. Maybe I don't even think even in European society, but I know not in the indigenous society of people of melanin, people of color, there has not been this socialization of men who would prey upon the weak. And we know that to be a fact, even in the history of when the Europeans started to, when they left their shores and they started to rob and steal and pillage all over the place. I mean, the men that they ran into, these weren't, it was a different understanding of what masculinity is. It wasn't that the Native Americans were chumps. They found that out. The Africans weren't chumps. Nowhere where they went were chumps, but there was a different understanding of the relationship of what a man is supposed to be. We said when we opened up the show that a natural man, is a man that is not in conflict with what's around him. So when the Europeans came, let's deal with Africa. When the Europeans went to Africa, they didn't immediately take anybody. They were offered, just like they were offered by the Native Americans. They were offered hospitality. So this was a foreign concept to our people. This foreign concept of taking advantage of the weak. This concept of just taking things. Now, of course, there were wars, and human beings are human beings, but this whole thing of just outright plunder and stealing, whatever spoils that you got from war, hey, you fought a war. but you didn't go somewhere and just say, well, we just like your land, we're just gonna take it. So so this was a foreign concept, I think. And when you talk about how hypermasculinity is not natural, it's not a natural construct. We see that today with the way that young black men in particular, and even those of us who aren't so young, how we as black men a lot of times relate to one another. Who you looking at? Why are you looking at me? And and all of this that's it's supposed to be masculine, but a lot of it's based in insecurity and fear. What you think?
Yeah, and then I mean, can I just say it like this? We are totally confused as black men. Look. I'll be the first one to raise my hand. Listen, your Uncle Thaddeus told me, right, when I was growing up, real men don't carry umbrellas.
Mm.
I
So
believe
what do you
that
mean
all
by
the way
that?
until I believe that all the way until I till I got a cold so bad from not wearing an umbrella, carrying an umbrella. So I mean, when we really on a serious, I mean, especially as young black men, what I grew up in and this is how we don't look at. I can't say that. I got to say it like this because I hate to generalize stuff because people look at it the way they want to look at it. For me, I had to have a different understanding of what masculinity was based on the projects, opposed to people that lived in a regular neighborhood. I had to base masculinity based on coming from a single parent, opposed to other people who didn't live in a project, who didn't come from a single parent, who lived in a house.
Right, right.
So my perception of masculinity, and you said it yourself. You said it yourself. My masculinity meant, okay, if you stepped on my foot, what's the problem? If you looked at me too hard, then who you looking at? I used to have this thing. I used to say this thing when that guy would say that. I said, well, if you wasn't looking at me, you wouldn't know I was looking at you. So when
Right,
we
right.
start, we have to go back. We got to go back and go now define the root of masculinity because
Exactly.
hyper doesn't even apply to who we really are. And then it doesn't apply to the environment, the culture, and the tradition and the environment that I grew up in. My definition of masculinity is different than somebody's definition of same black man in the suburbs. So if I see somebody a little, it's like if you see a man walking with his handbrake like that, you have a little perception. If you see some female tendency, you have a perception, right? A little perception of them, right? And it's based on what? Based on my culture. So so because I say this particular thing, that man, that ain't manly. Does that make me hate women? Or can I say, man, this woman, look, you ain't my mom. You can't talk to me like that. Does that mean
Right.
I hate you and I'm going to rape you? Does that mean because I don't have a problem loving gay people, but I have a problem with how you living? Does that mean that means I got to show my masculinity because I'm hyper because I'm just telling you how I feel? No.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Right. Right.
No, and we have to stop allowing us as black folks to allow people to take the narrative to us or the fact that we got to defend ourselves because our culture where we come from. Okay, do I know the rite of passage was to go kill a lion in the jungle? I don't know. I hear that, but does that presented manhood? Whatever that tradition was for that tribe, that presented manhood. Right?
Right.
But if you didn't do it, did that mean you weren't a man?
Well, I mean, but and I know where you're going. I think that because I mean Africa's a big continent, and we know there's thousands of different nationalities, thousands of languages and stuff. So everybody, I'm sure that when we say rites of passage, that's not a blanket thing for everybody. But but let's deal with some hard truth. One of the things about a lot of us is that we don't like to listen.
Uh-huh.
No, we don't like to listen. And I think that a lot of that comes from the breakdown of the black family. I mean, let's deal with some hard truths here. I mean, I'm probably the first generation, you and I, you're not much older than me. So we're probably the first generation of black men who have grown up in a household where it wasn't a stable, like what they call the nuclear family. We probably was like the first ones. And if you look at the statistics, in the 1960s and part of the 70s, marriage amongst black people was even higher than it was amongst white people. So we had these families of, I know coming up, it wasn't uncommon to see black men leaving houses around where you live at, going to work every day, coming home. But something changed, Ray. I know that when I got into high school, round about right before the 1980s, this came in with the crack epidemic. This came in with a lot of other social issues that really hit our community hard. And so you had the loss of manufacturing jobs, as you know about. You had the crack epidemic. You had this rampant unemployment. I mean, you know, you just had this. The society was going through some tremendous changes, which, I mean, look, which hit the black family hard. So now you had the proliferation of single female headed households. Now, I was raised up in one of them. Now, this is the thing: when you don't have any men around, you have these boys growing up in these households that take on these feminine characteristics. Let's be honest. They don't listen. They can't stand to be mentored by other men. They get, as Scheherazade Ali say, they get bitchy. They want to argue all the time. And so now you got generations after that. And then what you're seeing now, you and I never, in Camden, New Jersey, as rough as Camden was, you and I never heard gunshots in our community like these kids hear now. Because it wasn't this wasn't the way that we handled conflict. You know, because you and I came up in a generation where there was some male mentorship around. There was some male mentorship around that showed young boys how to deal with conflict. But now that's been lost for a great part. And now you got so many boys who can't take an ass whipping now. You know, we used to fight with the hands. They can't take an ass whipping. So the first thing they want to do is go grab a pistol, because a pistol donates power. And then they start to, and then the arguments, the subjects of the arguments are something you and I would have never even considered even fighting about. But yet they taking each other's lives. So you see the male, this hypermasculinity has really become a byproduct of what I would say is the result of a feminized culture within the black community that has really warped the sense of what masculinity is. So, you know, so you have these males now who are overly emotional, lacking rationalization, and, you know, and there is no male mentorship around in order to channel that. I mean, this is what I see.
I agree with you 100%. We take it even a step further. They bang bang shoot them up. And Money Mike said that you described toxic masculinity. That's true. Watch this. So they're emotional, right? So they shoot a person, right? They go to prison, and watch this. Because when you talk about hypermasculinity, right, it is more relevant by prisoners than any other group in the world. So now this kid who's emotional, who shot somebody, now he's somebody's girlfriend.
Right.
So now you have a bunch of young men that have been incarcerated 5 to 10 years, 3 to 5 years, and they coming out after being raped or turned out or whatever, and still playing a tough role, but now being on the down low of doing all these other things.
Right.
So now they're so this, and I got to come back to this again. Who defined hyper masculinity to the black man, and who is the black man that went crazy enough to believe that it pertained to us?
Well, let's chop that up then. What you think?
I think it still falls back to the same thing that you said. You know, and I shared this, I think, last week. You know, you got these young kids, and you gave me a great perspective on when I said this. You have the single mother talking about, I don't need no man, I don't need no man. Your dad this, right. Your dad this.
That's right.
And I looked at it from a perspective that the young man would say, okay, if my mom don't want me, don't know women want me. So let me do what I need to do with, get into this gang thing, get around all these men. And you got to remember, it's a whole lot of homosexual. I want to say it's a whole lot of things going on in gangs that people don't talk about. But you hit it from a different perspective, that where they're hearing that now they're hating men.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
That's
so
right.
it still somehow comes to the same thing. I hate men, and then women don't need me.
Right, right.
So who wants me? You see what I'm saying?
Wow.
So if we're
That's
coming
right.
from those two different angles, so you got 50% hating fathers, hating men because of dads, and you got another 50% thinking don't nobody want them, no women want them because your mom is doing just fine without a man. So where does the confusion come? So now I'm hanging out with the boys, right? I'm hanging out with the boys. We getting high and all these things. And listen, let me share something with you.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to be a homosexual either. In those cultures out there like that, and you're getting high like that, believe me, there's more male to male relationships and gangs than what people think.
Indeed. Yep.
So those are some of the underlying things that we see when we talk about hyper. Think about it, hyper. What does hyper mean? It means up, hyper, excited. I mean, another level. So if it's another level of masculinity, does that mean am I more of a man, or if I need to be more of a man just to prove I'm a man?
Right.
And if I need to prove I'm a man, then I'm gonna smack a woman to prove I'm a man. I'm a beat up this gay guy to prove I'm a man, or I'm gonna go kill some transit. So
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, I mean, and I mean, you're so right. Again, we talk about not protecting the community because, look, Ray, I mean, this has been a lot in the making. And one of the things I wanted to talk about is where in the conversation that the outside elements have come in to distort the black family dynamics. I mean, we talk about white feminism. Pardon me. We talk about child support because we're gonna have a show on child support and how harmful that's been to a lot of black men. We're gonna talk about that, and the intrusion of the court system. Because we don't like to deal with this, but you said something that I think that needs to be addressed is this hatred of black men that is often not talked about. Black men who see themselves or seen their fathers get drugged back and forth to court behind some BS that they was into with the baby's mama or the wife or whatever. The fact that, like you said, the father trying to develop a relationship with his kids, but the emotional BS of the mother prevented him from doing that. But the kids don't see that. They just see a man who's not interacting with them. And so he gets that hate, not knowing that there's more of a complex dynamic behind that. Then you have to deal with the white feminist who's telling black women that you don't need us. You don't need a black man. Then you're looking at the employment situation. My father, Ray, being a bus driver, I remember when New Jersey Transit started hiring women as bus drivers. My father said, overnight, man, women started to change, man. Now, this is not to demonize women. Let me get this straight, because a lot of us ain't listening to the conversation. So let me get this straight. It's not demonizing women. What we're saying is that a lot of these social dynamics have a lot to do with where we are today. So now you talk about affirmative action, which has never worked for black men, really. So you got white women and they're elevating black women above black men in education and employment. And so now you see where there's more black women going to college, graduating college, than there are black men. You see where there's more black women being
hold that thought too, because we got to have a show on these black women that's graduating from college and in debt over $100,000. But go ahead, we got to do a show on that. But go ahead.
Right, indeed. So so no, so let me just bring it home. What I'm saying is that there is a reason why we like to sit back and blame our young men for a lot of these things, but there is a reason why that this this is just response to the external stimuli from what I see.
Watch this, man. You hitting it. You hitting it, and every time you hit it, you just expound some stuff. Watch this. I mean, black man. I grew up understanding what a black man's job is to provide and protect for a woman. 2021. I am fighting, and this is not to demonize women, but I'm just going to keep it real. I'm just going to tell you like it is. This man has to fight every day with this woman who's making more money than him, who really don't need him, and he's fighting every day to prove that he's a man. Getting frustrated and more frustrated. He's and see, so they want to make this hyper masculinity a thing towards men raping and that and hating women. No, this brother is doing the right thing. This brother is working. This brother is doing. And this brother got his name on the lease. This brother got his name on the mortgage. This brother got his name on the marriage. And this brother can't make a decision in his house without his wife's approval.
Right, right.
Do you really want to go down this road? And so this brother, right, is getting frustrated. It could be his girlfriend, could be his wife. He's getting frustrated every day. Every day he fighting. He go out in the world and he fighting, and he go home and he fighting, and he go out in the world and he's fighting, and he's going out in the world and he fighting, and he's too afraid to hit that white man. And the frustration boils over.
That's right.
It boils over one or two ways. He either gets physical or he leaves. So listen, and the black man, you want really fighting every day to prove he's a man in his own house.
Well, again, we take this back to slavery, right? I mean, can you imagine how humiliating it was during slavery times, Ray, to have this white man punish you in front of your family, take your wife, who you're supposed to love and protect, and if he wanted to satisfy himself sexually with her, he just go on and do it. And if you was to protect your wife, then I mean, he'll take your life. Can you imagine that kind of humiliation? Being constantly subjected to that in front of your children, having another man just walk into your house, have sex with your wife while your children is there, and you can't dare do anything about it, because if you did, you were dead. You know that. And so I think that what you said about still not being able, because these are the conversations, man, that we really don't have. Still not being able as black men, as you said, to be able to plant your foot, plant your roots, and be like, look, they always say that, well, a man's house is his castle. Well, the black man has yet to experience that. Let's be honest. Black man has yet to experience that.
You know where his castle is? His castle is if he got a car or he on the bus, is in between working, going home.
Right. And this is not to say, like you said, this is not.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. I just want to just add this. This is not to denigrate our women. I mean, our women. I mean, look, you have a wonderful wife. I got a wonderful wife. So I mean, it's not like we're not saying that black women put us in this spot or that they. But what we're saying is that in order for us to heal, and to get back within our homeostasis state. And that homeostasis is that balance, man, that we had before the enslavement, the balance that we had before colonization and imperialism, before all of the propaganda that we digested. That to get back to that state, man, where the black man understands, who he is and what his place is in the world. That's all we're saying.
And Dr. DeGroot, when you talked about post-traumatic slavery syndrome, all that's very important to understand that. And so what is our solution? So we know the problem. We're just saying what most men are feeling and don't have nobody to talk to. You know what I'm saying? Really, most men, most black men, let's keep it to where they're supposed to be, are not feeling, hey, king, how you doing, king? Are not feeling like kings.
Right.
They're feeling more like a joker than a king. You know what I'm saying? So what is our solution? How do we change this narrative? Uh, and like you said, and this is the last time I'm gonna say it because you know, uh, no, it's not. We're not blasting women, but maybe you need to be listening.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? Because that's the reality. I'm telling you from a male perspective what a male man is going through. If he comes in that house, right, and he just worked whatever, and he comes in, no food, no this, no that, and he comes into an attitude for no reason, does that make him hyper masculine if he says, look, you my wife, I know you working there, but can I get a good meal?
Mm.
Does that make how does that make him like what, hyper masculine? So that means we can't say nothing at all about anything that's going wrong, right?
Right. Right.
So now watch this. So now we're not being feminine, but we're being soft, and soft identifies with femininity.
Mm.
Emotional responses identify women are emotional, men are logical, right? So
Mm-hmm.
if I'm responding 42 years old, 32 years old, if I'm responding emotional, like you said, I'm responding like a little girl, right?
That's right.
So if I'm responding like a little girl, those are feminine tendencies. And I go talk to my boy, right? I go tell my boy what's going on. And he'll say, man, stop acting like a girl and man up.
Right. 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 You acting like a little bitch is what they say.
Yeah, you say that. You know I can't say it, but you say that. you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, I mean, so now it has to come to a point for a solution. And I got to get comfortable. I got to get comfortable with telling somebody what I'm going through. Why? Why? Just to get it out of me. I got to be comfortable in writing stuff down, right? And just getting all this stuff out of me. I got to get comfortable, and I got to understand no matter what. And this is we say this right, and I'm gonna tell you, I try, but you know I ain't 100%. We say oh, you can't worry about what nobody thinking this and that. That would be great, but I'm human.
There you go.
You know what I'm saying? So how do I get away from this insecurity, this inferiority complex in my own home? You know what I'm saying? How
Mm-hmm.
do I stop this thing? Well, it's not real simple, but it is real simple. We at some point it doesn't matter, just be a man. But we say just be a man, but what does that mean to be a man when everything is coming up against you in your own home? That means no matter what they do, you just do what you do the right thing. I, I can't make it no plainer. I still pay the bills. I still am the protector. I still do what I need to do, right? And at some point, you just don't move me, whatever you say, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not the woman's fault. When you really look at that thing, when Dr. Group broke that thing down, they put the woman in a position to be able to make the order, to be able to run the household, to be able to make the decisions in the household. And when a man would come, they know they have the upper hand because they can always call 911 or say get out. Because most of the time when we're in a situation like that, our name ain't on the lease, ain't on nothing. And then we're always the three famous words is get out.
Mm-hmm.
So we cower down because we're afraid to hear those words instead of manning up. And watch this, you can say man up, but manning up and get your name on the deed, get your name on the lease, and get your name on the electric bill. And we got to stop being afraid that we can't live on our own,
Right.
right?
Right. I agree with that.
My mom taught me how to sew, cook, clean. She taught me all those things. She said, because if you rely on a woman, this is a woman telling me,
Mm-hmm.
if you rely on a woman, you're going to find yourself homeless. And guess what? I found myself homeless.
Mm.
Proverbs 31, they talked about, the virtual woman. But nobody, the real thing about Proverbs 31 is a mother talking to a son about what a woman should look like, about what a woman should be. this is the type of woman you need to be. This is the type of woman you need to find. Because if you find the wrong one, it can destroy a whole nation, meaning it can destroy generations in our life. That's why it ain't about no generational curse and stuff like that. But this, we allow a female to just destroy, to take our confidence, and the seeds that come from us, right? The apple don't fall too far from the tree. They act in the same manner in which we are. So when you look at Proverbs 31, it's explaining to a young ruler, it's explaining to a young prince, your queen must look like this. We as men we look at the physical, right? We look at whatever the sexual thing is and all that, but we never look at the woman based on what a queen should look like and act like, what a queen should act like, that is worthy of a king. You see, we just pick, and I don't, man, trust me. Until I got to my wife now, and it's funny because my wife, right? I knew her since sixth grade. We went to the prom together and all that stuff. We had a 36-year gap, but once I got her, my whole life changed. So, and certain things. Watch this. There's certain things. Men, hear me clearly. Hear me clearly. If your woman was in a relationship before, or a couple of relationships before, 99% of the time, they're not getting mad at you. They're getting mad at something that reminds you of a guy that did something to you previously. I'm going to say that again. 99% of the time, that woman is not getting mad at you. You did something that remind her of what some other man did to you, and she was responding accordingly because we don't communicate it, because you didn't know that this would happen in her life. Watch this. And then you respond, or we respond, based on what a female did to us that she had nothing to do with. And until we come to that understanding, when we come to that place where I know, listen, I know I never did that to you, but I know you got mad because I did it. So I gotta understand that it came from somewhere other than me. And we gotta get that understanding. We went through trauma, no counseling. Slavery, coming out of slavery, no counseling. Coming out of Jim Crow, no counseling. Coming out of all this, no counseling.
Yep, that's right.
No help from nowhere mentally. Listen. Most of us sitting out there has undiagnosed mental illness. Watch this. The one that they never teach you about, because this is my field. Social mental illness is tearing the black man and making us feel like we're hyper masculine because we're doing certain things, because it deals with our cognitive behavior, our cognitive thinking. We don't think right. We don't respond. We don't have the respond ability to certain situations. Great, because I don't want to monopolize.
No, go ahead. Finish your point.
You see, so we gotta be able to. You gotta understand, men. You have the ability. You have the respond ability to issues and situations according to the issues and situations, not emotionally. I'm gonna say that again. Respond. If somebody can write that, put the word respond ability in the comment. Respond ability. I can respond. I have the ability to. I can respond ability according to an issue, according to a situation, according to a circumstance. Okay? Based on the information that I know about myself. See, when I knew about myself that I'm responding to some things my wife did based on what she remind me of, then I can't take it out on my wife because it just remind me of something. So I'm hyper masculine when I respond. You right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the trick. And we gotta get to that place. Notice I'm saying we ever grown, we ever learning, but we gotta get to that place, right? Where we understand that we have the ability to respond, right? Respond ability. It's very enlightening. Can I say it like that?
Mm-hmm.
You see? So we got to get there, and then see, and we got to study. You got to go. You got to go. You got to go from slavery. You got to go from Africa. You got to understand. Now you got to understand history. My only problem with sometimes we teach a lot about history, but it's more than just teaching about history. I understand my history, but but I have to apply the lessons from my history in today's time, because the writers wrote things in ancient times, and then you got to do a research what was going on at the time when they were writing it, right? And so
Yeah.
when you get that understanding, now I can use my history to watch this, to make good decisions about my present. I can also use my history to make bad decisions about my present. You know?
Right.
Go ahead, cuz.
Well, no, I mean, man, that was some good stuff, man. I mean, John Coster, he really thanked you, man, for your input. And I do too. That was some good stuff. That's why I just sat back and listened. As men, we have to develop that, man. We have to develop the respect to listen to one another, and we have to develop the respect to because I mean, this is how we grow. I mean, this is how we grow. Like I said, you know, if we were back during the time of if we were back amongst our people, it would be the men who would teach the men. And so we have to respect what especially what our elder men are saying. We have to respect that. But we talk about solutions, and I agree with what you say. My take on solutions is that personally, I believe that we have to get back to our culture. I believe that culture is very important. Now, people say, "Well, what culture are you talking about?" It ain't the culture. Yeah, it ain't the culture, and trust me, it ain't the culture that's been imposed upon us. It ain't the WAS. It ain't the white Anglo-Saxon Protestant culture that has been imposed upon us by enslavement. It's not that. We will have to get back as best as we can, because we are kidnapped people. We have to get back to what the culture of our ancestors were and is. It's becoming a little bit more easier now to find out where a lot of us originated from. I was watching a program that Samuel L. Jackson was in, and he traced his roots back to the Benga people on the I think of the Senegambia, what was once Senegambia or Benin somewhere. But when he traced his roots back to there and he went and visited them people, the first thing they did was they took him through what they call a welcome him ceremony. And this is the ceremony. They didn't just make this up for him. They said that this is a ceremony that they have for anybody who was kidnapped during the diaspora that belonged to their nation. And when they return home, this is what they go through. They go through this cleansing. Because and I thought that was a beautiful thing about cleansing, because of the trauma that has happened to us during these last 500 years. And so they take you through a cleansing, a ritual cleansing, and you become part of the tribe again, part of that nation. And so in becoming part of that nation, then you have to relearn the customs and the value systems of that people. And I really do believe that this is I think this is the major solution that we, not only as Black men, but as Black people, this is the major solution, I think, to our problem. The culture that's been imposed upon us is a culture that doesn't suit us. It's a culture that don't fit us. It might work for them, but it don't work for us. And this is not just some superficial Afrocentric mumble jumble I'm talking about. I'm talking about me personally. I believe that we should immerse ourselves in our culture. I believe that we should even go as far as learning one of the languages of Africa. When we opened up this show today with a phrase from the Yoruba. Now, I'm not personally Yoruba myself, but I think that we should make those attempts, because culture is what saves us. It's our immune system. It's our immune system from the external things, man, that attack us. I mean, we survived the transatlantic slave trade based upon culture. And that's the reason why that they tried their best to destroy that in us, because that was the major thing that kept us from being a non-people, is our culture. The fact that a lot of it did survive. And I say that to say that we once had that here. And I mentioned that earlier, how we once had that. We had men around us, whether they were related to you or not. But as boys, we got some kind of guidance, something that I think is really, really lost today. And then I agree with what you said about the relationship of ownership, how we should be able to live on our own. Well, then that's another problem, because first of all, there hasn't been any real lessons for our young men to even learn how to do that. They seen their mamas bring boyfriends in the house. Sometimes they seen their father shacking up with this woman, shacking up with woman. So the daddy didn't have anything, unless the woman had it. Then they seen their brothers doing the same thing. So they seen this culture of black men who are parasites or acting as parasites. And how can you respect that? So then expect this boy to be independent and to have his own when all he saw around him was examples of men living off of women. I mean, that's really asking something. So we have to really reorientate the way that we approach our, not only how we approach relationships with our women, how we approach relationships with each other, with our community. I'm a great believer that in order for, and I'll tell my daughter this. I told my daughter that if a man comes to live with her, before she even puts that man anywhere on the lease, he has to earn that. I mean, he has to do more than just sling Johnson all around the house. He has to earn that. So I mean, so this is something that in making better men, Ray, you and I both have daughters. In making better men, we also have to educate our daughters too, because our daughters, man, our women, unfortunately, through their dysfunction, have allowed us to be trifling in a lot of ways, and have even encouraged that trifleness. We talk about hypermasculinity, but how many black women encouraged that in us? How many black women rejected the natural character of some black men? How many black women will tell a smart black man that he ain't cool enough, or that she gotta have a thug and all? So a lot of that encouragement comes from them, but they don't know any better. So we have to instruct our daughters also, like, hey, look, this is what a man is supposed to be about. Not some caricature from a rap video, not some character, not a character from some rapper who is presenting a false image. And in order to present that image to our daughters, then we have to be about that image, because most of the time your daughter will choose a man based upon her relationship with her father. So you sit there and you be that example to your daughter, and she won't be part of the problem of encouraging our black men to suicide and death, because that's what a lot of these women do. A lot of these women, because of their own miseducation, their own dysfunction, they go out here, and I've seen this time and time again, where these black women would put a black man in front of his own death because they can't shut their mouth, because they themselves don't know how to not create drama, because themselves, they're living this fantasy of some this black Superman that's supposed to come in and just take care of anybody that she has an issue with, and that has cost a lot of brothers their lives, man. I was on a bus one time, Ray, when I used to live in Paterson, New Jersey, man. I remember, man, this woman was on the bus one time, black woman, and it was a brother, man, that got on the bus, and the bus was crowded, and he bumped into the woman, man. You couldn't help but bump into people. You've been on them crowded buses, man, New Jersey Transit. And so the woman turned around. He said, "Excuse me," I was there. He said, "Excuse me, sis." Man, she went to cuss this man out. So Dan came in. Man had to defend himself. So he started arguing back with her. You know, this woman, man, went and picked up a phone, her cell phone, and called some jokers. And these dudes was waiting at the next bus stop to shoot this dude, man. The bus driver, when they came up to the bus driver, thank God, he just kept going through. And they shot at the bus, man. I was on the bus when they did it. They shot at the bus, man, because of what this woman did. So when we address our young men about this this twisted sense, this warped sense of what a man is, then we have to also educate our women, man, our young women, that you could be just as responsible for a black man's death as he is responsible himself. So I think that this is where we, as the elders, come in. I think we have to not be afraid to address our young people. I think we have to be able to form, because we're in solutions now. We have to be willing to come together as men and form these social clubs where we get these boys and we start to reinitiate what our ancestors have done, which is the rite of passage. Only we can heal ourselves, and this is the problem. We've been leaving it up to other people to do it. But that is part of my solution. Is that this is what we have to do to heal. We have to let our young men know that what they see on TV, because black people, man, we're the most propagandized, as my wife always say, we're the most propagandized people on the planet. And we base a lot of our lives on what's on that TV set, on what our favorite rappers is doing, or what our favorite television. We want to live like Snowfall, and we want to do all of these other things, and it's killing us because we're putting on these false images because we don't know who the hell we are. So I think that that's where we start at. We have to let our young men know what being a man really is about. And it's not Snowfall. It's not Boys in the Hood. It's not what those have been. Unfortunately, those have been our experiences because of the dysfunction that we grew up in. So, man, look, I know we're getting short, Ray, and I'm gonna leave you with the last word, man. But that's where I'm at with it right now, man. This is a fight, man, that we really got to undertake.
And you hitting it right on the mark. And listen, the first thing I always say, the first thing we elders, old men need to do, we need to dress our age.
Yes. Say that again, brother.
We need to dress our age.
Yes.
I hear guys, well, I'm going to go out in the corner and try to draw them young people. And, I got to look like them. Well, here's the only problem. If you look like them, they're going to treat you like them.
Hey, there you go.
If you got the hat on backwards and you got the pants and all that stuff, then you wonder why they don't respect you. You look like that. You look just like them. I refuse to look like them. I'm 62 years old. With the culture I grew up with, we were always color coordinated. We was always neat. I mean, look, sneakers was white. All that stuff. I dressed the same. I got the same haircut I had back in 1970, 1965 that I do in 2020. I dressed the same way that in 2021 that I dressed in 1972, 71, 65. Same way. I have not changed. And I refuse to walk. I don't care. Listen, I'm not crazy, but I refuse to walk to the other side of the street when I see a bunch of young people coming my way.
Right.
Young black brothers coming my way.
There you go.
Because if you carry yourself right, now I got to go on my spiritual side. Listen, one, they will sense. There's so many times I walk past people. They sensed who I was from my spirit. They understood I was a man of authority. They understood I was a man who deserved respect. They understood I was a man who was loving and caring. They sensed that in the spirit. And you know how you can tell? Because once they walk up to you and say, "Hey, how you doing, Unc?" You know they respect you. That's their favorite line. If they respect, "Hey, Unc, how you doing, Unc?"
Yep.
I'm telling you.
Or OG.
OG, one of the two.
Yep, one of the other. OG. Yep.
So yeah, we have to take and we have to take personal responsibility in learning how to be men and on a platform like this. Being open, sharing in the comments, asking questions in the comments. We don't have all the answers. expounding in the comments on what we're saying. I need to learn too. I ain't, trust me, I do not have it all together. Ask my wife. So this is a platform where we just not us pouring out, but we want you guys to pour into us too.
That's right. That's right.
And that's all I got to say.
Hey man, look, and I just want to just say about we disabled the chat because we said that this was going to be a safe space for men to share the share and heal themselves. So we didn't want no knuckleheads coming on the comments and trying to sabotage our efforts. But like you said, Ray, if you want to catch up with us, you want to ask questions and have us address it, then we're gonna our producer is gonna leave the email in the chat, Luqman Nation at Gmail, and feel free, man, to send us emails, man. And Ray and I, man, we're gonna chop it up and we're gonna get back to you, man. We are going. This is just the beginning, and this is just the beginning. We are going to start a revolution and rebuilding our black manhood, man. We're the only ones that can do it. I mean, Ray, look, man. I mean, we at this time, we at the end of the stage, man. But look, man, I love you because of black men. We can't be afraid to say we love each other.
Mm-hmm.
I love my cousin. I know he loved me. And so this is where we start this off at, man. I mean, we got one of the things that we all have in common as black men is we all got the same enemies. And so we need to understand that. We all have the same enemies. So, like I said, I love my cuz. I know my cuz love me. And hey, man, hit us up in the chat. We don't care, man. Good, bad, or indifferent. Just hit us up. You ain't going to hurt our feelings. Just hit us up, man, and we're going to get back with y'all. So, cuz, look, man, it's been a great show, bro.
Love you, cuz.
Love you too, man. And our producer, Jackie Luqman, who's
love you, cuz, back there.
That's right. My brother David Otness, he said, I'll let Jackie see this. He said he's glad that our equipment finally working. We're getting there, Dave. You know what I mean? We're getting there, man. So, but thank you for that. So, look, everybody that joined us, share this, invite other men to this platform, man. We're going to be here, God willing, every Saturday, man, at 7 o'clock. So be here, man. We got a lot to talk about, a lot to discuss. We will have guests coming in, man. We're going to have workshops. My cousin is the man with the workshops, man. So, I mean, trust me, we are just now at the tip of this thing. So don't bail on us now. Y'all just, we just getting started. Ain't that right, cuz?
Yeah, and I want to say something because, and you said it, God's will. And here, and I want to expound. I want every young men, I want y'all to hear this. It is God's will for us to be here every Saturday if we stay in the purpose and plan that He has for our life, because we will not leave this earth until we have completed everything that He has for us, as long as we stay in the path and in His will. So we will be here next week unless we just jumped off the earth. But no, real seriously, and hear what I'm saying as a man of God. It is His will. He said in the Bible, He said, don't take us out of the world, but keep us in the world. Just protect us from the evil one, because each and every one of you under the sound of our voice has a purpose and plan for your life. And there's people, there's souls attached to you, and they will never see God, or they will never see their full potential unless they see it in your life.
All right. So we're going to end on that note. And as the Honorable Fred Hampton says, peace if you are willing to fight for it. Peace up. We love you all out there. See you next week.